The great ship moved slowly through the darkness of space. Admiral stood at the front window and looked at the stars. His heart was full of hope. After many years of work, humanity had finally done it. They had made contact with other life in the universe. And now they were going to join the Galactic Council. Was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had served Earth for 40 years. This was the greatest moment of his life. Behind him stood Dr. Park, the scientist on Earth. She studied alien life and had worked her whole life for this day. Next to her was General Lee, the commander of Earth's military. He was a serious man who did not smile often, but today even he looked happy. "We are almost there," said quietly. "Can you believe it? We are about to meet beings from across the galaxy." Smiled and pushed her glasses up her nose. "I have dreamed of this since I was a little girl. To think that we are not alone. To think that there are others out there who have built civilizations among the stars." The ship came out of faster-than-light travel, and suddenly they saw it. The council station was huge. It was bigger than any city on Earth. Thousands of ships flew around it like small fish around a whale. Lights of every color shined from its surface. "Beautiful," said. It was the first time anyone had heard him use that word. The human delegation landed on the station and was greeted by strange beings. Some had 4 arms. Some floated in the air. Some had scales and some had fur. There were 47 different species in the Galactic Council, and they had all come to welcome humanity. The leader of the council was a named High Lord. He was tall and thin, with silver skin and eyes that glowed blue. He spoke in a voice that was soft but powerful. "Welcome, children of Earth," said. "Today you join our great family. Today you become part of something larger than yourselves." Bowed his head in respect. "We are honored. Humanity has always looked to the stars with wonder. Now we finally take our place among them." The ceremony was grand. There was music and celebration. Beings from across the galaxy cheered for humanity. For one beautiful moment, believed that the universe was good. He believed that the future was bright. But he did not see the looks that passed between the council leaders when humans were not watching. He did not hear the secret meetings held in dark rooms. He did not know that the council had been watching humanity for a long time, and they were afraid. "They grow too fast," said a leader. There were a species that shared one mind. They thought as one and spoke as one. In just 200 years they went from simple machines to starships. If we give them another 1,000 years, what will they become? High Lord nodded slowly. "They breed like insects. Their population doubles every century, and they are violent. Look at their history. They fight each other constantly. Imagine what they will do to us when they are strong enough." "Then we must act now," they said, "while they are still weak, while they still trust us." The plan was simple and evil. The council told humanity that there was a military exercise, a friendly training mission. They asked Earth to send its defense fleet to the far edge of the galaxy. It was a show of trust, they said, a sign of friendship. Had his doubts, but the council had been so kind. How could he refuse? He gave the order and Earth's entire fleet flew away from home, every warship, every soldier. They left Earth unprotected. Was on a station far from home when it happened. He was watching the training exercise when ran into the room. Her face was white as paper. Her hands were shaking. She said, her voice was breaking, something is happening to Earth." They turned on the communication screens. At first there was only static. Then slowly images began to appear, felt his heart stop. Earth was burning. Great beams of light were falling from the sky. Cities were being destroyed in seconds. He saw Seoul disappear in a flash of fire. He saw Tokyo crumble into dust. He saw New York, London, Beijing, Mumbai, all of them burning, all of them dying. The oceans began to boil. The forests turned to ash. The sky itself seemed to catch fire. "No," whispered, "no, no, no." He tried to send a message. He tried to call for help, but the communication lines were blocked. The council had cut them off from everything. Grabbed a nearby officer. "Turn our ships around, we have to go back, we have to save them." "We cannot," the officer said, tears running down his face. "We are too far, it would take us weeks to reach Earth. And our weapons, they are not loaded. This was supposed to be a training mission. We have no ammunition." Fell to his knees. On the screen, he watched as 10 billion people died. He watched as everything humanity had ever built was destroyed. He watched as the council erased his entire species from the face of the universe. It took 3 hours. In just 3 hours, Earth was gone. The last image they saw was the planet itself, cracked and broken, covered in fire and smoke. It no longer looked like home. It looked like a wound in space. Why was crying? Why would they do this? We trusted them. We believed in them. Stood in the corner, his fists clenched so tight that his knuckles had turned white. He was not crying. His face was stone. But his eyes burned with something that had never seen before. It was not anger. It was something darker, something colder. "Because they feared us," said quietly. "They saw what we could become and they were afraid. So they killed us before we had the chance." Slowly got back to his feet. His legs felt weak. His heart felt like it had been torn from his chest. But he was still alive. They were all still alive. And out there, scattered across the galaxy, there were other human ships, other survivors. "How many?" asked. "How many of us are left?" An officer checked the reports. "We are still counting, sir, but maybe 2 million, maybe less." 2 million. Out of 10 billion. Out of all the children who had ever laughed, all the artists who had ever painted, all the lovers who had ever held hands under the stars, only 2 million remained. The council sent a final message. It played on every screen in the human fleet. "The species known as humanity has been declared extinct," the message said. "The Sol system is now under permanent quarantine. Any attempt to return will be met with immediate destruction. The Council offers its condolences for this unfortunate necessity." Unfortunate necessity. That was what they called the murder of 10 billion people. Turned off the screen. He looked at every human in the room. "They think we are finished," he said. His voice was quiet, but everyone heard him. "They think they have killed us, but they have not. We are still here. We are still breathing. And as long as one human heart beats in this universe, we are not dead." He walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, in the cold darkness of space, Earth was dying, but humanity was not. "We will run," said. "We will hide. We will rebuild. And one day, maybe not in my lifetime, maybe not for 1,000 years, we will come back. And when we do, they will learn what it means to face a species with nothing left to lose." Stepped forward. "We will remember every name, every child, every life they stole." Wiped her tears. "And we will make them pay for all of it." The human fleet turned away from the known galaxy. They flew into the darkness, into the void where no maps existed. Behind them, Earth continued to burn. But in front of them, there was something else, something the Council had not expected. Hope, rage, and the promise of revenge. The ships flew through empty space for months. They had no destination. They had no home. They only had the need to escape, to survive, to keep moving until the Council stopped hunting them. Stood in the command room of his ship, looking at the map. The Council controlled most of the galaxy. Their ships were everywhere. Their spies watched every corner of known space. If humanity wanted to survive, they needed to go somewhere the Council had never been. "The void," said. She pointed to the edge of the map where the stars ended and there was only darkness. "Beyond the galactic rim, no species has ever explored it. The Council thinks it is empty and dangerous. They would never look for us there." Studied the map with hard eyes. "It will take us years to reach it, and we do not know what we will find. We could be flying to our deaths." "We are already dead," said. "The Council has declared us extinct. Our planet is gone. Our families are gone. What do we have to fear? More death. Let death come. We have already lost everything. The decision was made. The human fleet, 53 ships carrying 2 million souls, turned toward the void. Before they left known space forever, called for a meeting. Every ship connected through communication screens. Every survivor watched and listened. They gathered in cargo holds and medical bays. They gathered in hallways and kitchens. They stood shoulder to shoulder, humans of every color and culture, united by their shared tragedy. His face appeared on every screen. He looked older than he had just months ago. His eyes were tired, but there was still fire in them. "My friends," he said, "my family, we have suffered something that no species should ever suffer. Our home has been taken from us. Our loved ones have been murdered. The galaxy has turned its back on us and called it justice." He paused and looked down at his hands. "I wish I could tell you that it will be easy. I wish I could promise you that we will find a new home quickly, but I cannot. The journey ahead will be long and hard. Many of us will not survive. We will face hunger and sickness and despair. We will wonder if there is any point in continuing." He raised his head, and his voice grew stronger. "But we will continue, because we carry something that the Council cannot destroy. We carry the memory of Earth. We carry the faces of everyone we lost. And we carry a promise that we will return, that we will make them answer for what they have done." A young woman on one of the ships stood up. Her name was, and she had lost her entire family on Earth. "How?" she asked. "How can we fight an enemy that controls the entire galaxy? We are only 2 million people." Smiled sadly. "Not us, child. We may never live to see the day of revenge, but our children will, or their children, or their children's children. It does not matter how long it takes. 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years. Humanity will remember and humanity will return." Stepped forward. His voice was like stone. "I propose a vow, a promise that every human will make and every human will teach to their children. A promise that will be passed down through all generations until the day of reckoning comes." He raised his hand, and across 53 ships, 2 million humans did the same. "We will return," said. "We will return," 2 million voices repeated. "We will remember. We will remember. We will repay. We will repay." The words echoed through the ships, and something changed in that moment. The survivors were no longer just refugees running from death. They were the seeds of something new, something that would grow in the darkness until it was ready to bloom. The journey through the void took 53 years. At first there was only emptiness. The ships flew through darkness so complete that it felt like being blind. There were no stars to guide them. There were no planets to rest on. There was only the cold and the silence. People began to lose hope. Some stopped eating. Some stopped talking. The despair was like a disease that spread from ship to ship. Did everything he could to keep spirits alive. He organized schools for the children. He held meetings where people could share their memories of Earth. He made sure that every person had a purpose, a reason to keep going. But even could not fight time. 20 years into the journey, his body began to fail. He had been strong once, but the stress and the sorrow had broken him down. He spent his last days in the medical bay, surrounded by the people who loved him. His daughter, Sara, sat by his bed. She was 30 years old now, born on the ships, a child of the void. She had never seen Earth except in pictures and videos, but she had grown up hearing the stories. She had grown up with the vow in her heart. "I am sorry," whispered. "I wanted to see us reach safety. I wanted to see the beginning of our new home." Sora held his hand. "You will, Father, through me, through all of us. Everything you started, we will finish." Smiled. "Remember the vow, Sora. Teach it to your children, and their children. Never let them forget what was done to us. Never let them forget why we ran." "I promise," Sora said. Closed his eyes and did not open them again. The fleet mourned for 7 days, then they continued forward. There was no choice, they had to keep moving. Park survived longer than anyone expected. She worked every day on her research, trying to find ways to help humanity grow stronger. She developed new medicines that help people live longer. She found ways to grow food more efficiently. She even began experimenting with changes to the human body itself, small improvements that would help future generations survive in harsh conditions. Evolution is too slow, she explained to her students. If we wait for nature to make us stronger, we will wait forever. We must guide our own growth. We must become something more than what we were. Her ideas were controversial at first. Some people thought it was wrong to change the human body, but reminded them of their situation. We are not living in a kind universe, she said. The galaxy tried to kill us. If we want to survive, if we want to return one day and face our enemies, we must be better than we were. Faster, smarter, stronger. Our children must be greater than us, and their children must be greater still. Slowly, people began to accept her vision. 33 years after leaving known space, Lee died. He had lived long enough to see his grandson, Lee, grow into a strong young man. Had his grandfather's eyes, hard and cold, filled with the same fire that had burned in since the day Earth died. "Grandfather," said as the old man lay dying, "I will not forget. I will train our soldiers. I will build our weapons. And when the time comes, I will lead our armies back to Council space." Gripped his grandson's arm. "Make them bleed, boy, make them weep. Show them what it means to face the children of Earth." "I will," promised. 20 years later, the scouts found it. A planet hidden in the darkness. It was not a normal planet, it did not orbit any star. It was a rogue world, wandering alone through the void. But deep inside it there was heat. Volcanic fires burned beneath its surface, creating warmth and energy. There were caves and tunnels that could shelter millions. Sarah, now an old woman herself, looked at the planet through the ship's window. Tears ran down her face. "We found it," she whispered. "Father, we found it." They called it the Cradle. It would be humanity's new home. Here, in the darkness between galaxies, they would build a new civilization. They would grow strong. They would prepare. The first humans landed on the Cradle and began to dig. They carved homes into the rock. They built machines to harvest the planet's heat for energy. They planted gardens in underground chambers. Park, now 800 years old thanks to her own life-extending treatments, supervised the construction. She knew she would not live much longer, but she had done her work. She had given humanity the tools it needed to evolve. The rest would be up to future generations. On the day she died, gathered her students around her. "I have lived a long time," she said. "I have seen things that no human should have to see, but I have also seen something beautiful. I have seen us survive. I have seen us refuse to die. The Council thought they ended humanity 53 years ago. They were wrong. We are still here, and one day we will return." She closed her eyes and smiled. "Remember Earth," she said. "Remember the vow, and remember we are the children of ashes. From nothing we will build everything." She died peacefully, surrounded by the people she had helped to save. And in the Cradle, deep in the void, humanity continued to grow. Time passed differently in the void. Without stars or seasons, the years blended together. Generations were born and died. Stories became legends. Legends became history, and history became something almost like religion. Every human child learned the same lessons. They learned about a beautiful blue planet called Earth. They learned about 10 billion people who lived and loved and dreamed. They learned about the Council's betrayal, and they learned the vow. "We will return, we will remember, we will repay." These words were carved into the walls of every building. They were spoken at the beginning of every meal. They were the first words taught to every child, and the last words spoken to every dying elder. 1,000 years after arriving at the Cradle, humanity had grown. The original 2 million survivors had become 50 million. They had expanded into the tunnels and caves, building cities beneath the frozen surface. Engineers had learned to harvest the planet's heat, creating power that would last forever. Scientists had improved genetic treatments, making each generation stronger and smarter than the last. Humans now lived for 300 years on average. Their minds could process information faster. Their bodies could survive conditions that would have killed their ancestors. They were still human. They still laughed and cried and loved, but they were becoming something more. 5,000 years passed. Humanity found other rogue planets in the void. They built colonies on each one, connected by ships that could cross the darkness in weeks instead of years. The population grew to 1 billion, then 10 billion, then 100 billion. The children of Earth had not forgotten their purpose. Every colony had a military academy. Every young person spent 5 years in training. The void was peaceful, but humanity was preparing for war. Scientists worked day and night on new weapons. They built ships that could appear and disappear like ghosts. They created bombs that could crack planets in half. They designed plagues that could target specific species, killing them while leaving everything else untouched. "We are not building these weapons because we love war," the scientists said. "We are building them because we have no choice. When we return to Council space, we will be facing 47 species. They will have trillions of soldiers and thousands of years of experience. If we want to win, we must be overwhelming. We must be unstoppable." 10,000 years passed. The human empire in the void had grown beyond anything the original survivors could have imagined. 12 hidden star systems, all outside the known galaxy. Hundreds of planets, all covered with cities and factories and military bases. Population, 400 billion. And the scouts had begun their work. The first scout ships entered Council space 5,000 years after humanity settled in the void. They were small and nearly invisible, designed to watch without being seen. Their mission was simple: learn everything about the enemy. The scouts spent thousands of years mapping every system in Council territory. They recorded the locations of military bases and shipyards. They studied the culture and politics of every species. They identified weaknesses and strengths. They sent back reports that filled libraries with information. And they were never detected. The Council had forgotten about humanity long ago. To them, the extinction of Earth was ancient history, a small event from a distant time. Most Council citizens had never even heard of humans. They had been erased from textbooks and databases. They were a footnote that no one remembered. This was exactly what humanity wanted. 20,000 years passed. The human empire was now a military superpower that no one knew existed. They had weapons that the Council could not imagine. Their ships were faster and stronger than anything in the known galaxy. Their soldiers were genetically enhanced warriors who trained for battle from childhood. But the leaders of humanity were patient. They did not rush toward revenge. They built slowly and carefully, making sure that when the time came, victory would be certain. A council of elders governed the human empire. They called themselves the Remembrance Council, and their only purpose was to prepare for the return. Every decision they made was focused on that single goal. "We must not attack until we are ready," they said. "If we strike too soon and fail, there will be no second chance. The council will hunt us down and finish what they started. We must be patient. We must be perfect." 30,000 years passed. Humanity now numbered 600 billion across 30 hidden systems. Their technology had advanced so far that it would seem like magic to the old council species. They could build machines that thought for themselves. They could create matter from energy. They could bend space and time in ways that should have been impossible. And they had developed the ultimate weapons. The Void Rippers were devices that could tear holes in space itself. A single Void Ripper could destroy an entire fleet by pulling it into nothingness. The neural plagues were biological weapons designed for specific alien species. One plague could kill every in the galaxy while leaving all other life untouched. The stellar engines were massive machines that could control stars, making them grow brighter or dimmer or even explode. These weapons were kept in secret vaults, guarded by the most loyal soldiers. They were the final tools of revenge. 40,000 years passed. By now, humanity had changed so much that the original survivors would barely recognize them. The average human lived for 500 years. Their eyes could see in perfect darkness. Their minds could communicate through technology built into their brains. Some had modified their bodies in strange ways: extra arms for engineers, enhanced lungs for miners, perfect memory for scientists. But inside, they were still human. They still fell in love. They still raised families. They still told stories and sang songs and dreamed of the future. And they still remembered Earth. Every year on the anniversary of the burning, all of humanity stopped whatever they were doing. Factories went silent. Schools closed. Ships hung motionless in space. And for 1 hour, everyone watched the same recording, the images of Earth's destruction that had been saved 50,000 years ago. Children watched their ancient home burn and learned to hate the council. Adults watched and renewed their commitment to the vow. Elders watched and remembered the stories their grandparents had told them about grandparents who had actually seen Earth. The recording ended with his voice preserved across the ages. "We will run, we will hide, we will rebuild, and one day we will come back." 50,000 years passed. A new generation of leaders had risen to power. Admiral Shin commanded the military. He was a calm man with cold eyes, descended from a family that had led human armies for 12,000 years. His entire life had been dedicated to one purpose: the return. Beside him stood High Scientist Moon, descendant of Park students. She oversaw all of humanity's technology, including the terrible weapons that would be used against the Council. She was brilliant and focused, with no room in her heart for mercy toward those who had burned Earth. Chancellor led the civilian government. He was older than the others, a wise man who thought about the future beyond revenge. What would humanity become after they had taken their vengeance? He worried about this question, but he kept his concerns to himself. First, they had to win. Stood before the Remembrance Council and presented his report. "Our scouts have completed their final survey," he said. "We have mapped every military installation in Council space. We have placed dormant viruses in their communication networks. We have agents on every major world. When we attack, we will shut down their defenses in seconds. They will be blind and helpless." And our forces asked. 10,000 capital ships, 2 million smaller vessels, 50 billion soldiers ready for ground combat, and of course the special weapons. Paused. "We are ready." The council was silent. This was the moment they had been preparing for across 500 centuries. Generations beyond counting had lived and died for this day. "The vote must be unanimous," said. "We are deciding the fate of two civilizations, ours and theirs. Are we certain this is what we want?" One by one, every member of the council spoke. "For Earth. For the 10 billion. For every child who never got to grow up. For every family that was torn apart. For 50,000 years of exile. For the vow." The vote was unanimous. Stood and looked out at the assembled leaders of humanity. His voice was steady. 50,000 years ago, the Galactic Council tried to erase us from existence. They burned our world. They murdered our people. They declared us extinct and forgot we ever lived. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "They forgot, we remembered, and now we are going home." Across the human empire, the order went out. Factories shifted to full production. Soldiers reported to their ships. Families said goodbye to their loved ones. The largest military force in the history of the universe began to move. The void had been humanity's prison for 50,000 years. Now it would become their launching point for the greatest revenge in galactic history. The Galactic Council was celebrating. 50,000 years had passed since the last great threat to their power, the extinction of the dangerous human species. They called this period the Era of Stability, a golden age of peace and prosperity. The Grand Assembly met on a beautiful planet of crystal towers and floating gardens. Representatives from all 47 council species had gathered for the anniversary celebration. They wore their finest clothes and spoke of their achievements with pride. High Lord, the current leader of raised his glass to toast the assembled guests. His silver skin shone in the light, and his blue eyes glowed with satisfaction. 50,000 years ago, he said, our ancestors made a difficult decision. They removed a threat before it could grow. Some called it cruel at the time, but look at what we have built since then. 500 centuries of peace. No wars, no chaos, just order and progress. The crowd cheered. They had heard this story many times, but they never grew tired of congratulating themselves. To the wisdom of our ancestors, said, and to 50,000 more years of stability. Glasses were raised, drinks were taken, music began to play. No one noticed when the lights flickered. At first, it was just a small thing. A screen went dark for a moment. A communication device stopped working, then started again. The guests looked at each other with mild confusion, but no one was worried. Technology sometimes had small problems. Then every light in the building went out. The darkness was complete. There were screams of surprise and fear. Security officers tried to use their devices, but nothing worked. Weapons would not fire. Doors would not open. The entire building had been shut down. And then the screens came on again. Every screen in the Grand Assembly showed the same image. A planet covered in fire, oceans boiling, cities crumbling, 10 billion lives ending in 3 hours. Earth. The guests stared in shock. Most of them had never seen this footage. It had been erased from council records thousands of years ago, but here it was, burning into their eyes. Then a voice spoke. It came from everywhere at once, filling the room like thunder. You forgot us. The image of burning earth faded, replaced by darkness. And in that darkness, lights began to appear. Ship lights. Thousands of them, tens of thousands. They formed a wall around blocking out the stars. We remembered you. High Lord stumbled backward, his silver face turning gray with fear. He had never seen ships like these. They were massive, bristling with weapons, designed for one purpose only: destruction. We are the children of Earth. The screens showed the inside of a human ship. A man stood at the center, wearing a simple military uniform. He had dark hair and calm eyes that held no emotion. Behind him stood thousands of soldiers, perfectly still, perfectly silent. We have returned. Admiral Shin looked into the camera. He spoke in a voice that was quiet but carried the weight of 50,000 years. 50,000 years ago, your ancestors made a decision. They decided that humanity was too dangerous to live. They burned our world while we watched. They murdered 10 billion of our people. They called it peace. He stepped closer to the camera. Today you will learn the true price of that peace. This is not war. War implies that both sides have a chance. This is collection. This is payment. This is the bill coming due. The council representatives tried to contact their military fleets. Nothing worked. The communication networks were dead. Human agents had spent centuries placing hidden viruses in every system, and now those viruses had awakened. Your weapons will not fire, continued. Your ships will not move. Your allies cannot hear you. You are alone. Just as we were alone 50,000 years ago when we watched our families die. High Lord finally found his voice. This is impossible. The humans were extinct. We destroyed them. You destroyed our home, said. You did not destroy us. We fled to the void, to the darkness beyond your maps. We hid there for 500 centuries. We built an empire you never knew existed. We grew strong. We prepared. And now we have come for what you owe us." A representative pushed forward. They were the species that had designed the weapons used to destroy Earth. They shared one mind, and right now, that mind was filled with terror. "What do you want?" they asked. "We will give you anything: planets, resources, power. Just tell us what you want." Smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "What do we want?" He seemed to consider the question. "We want our mothers back. We want our children back. We want our world back. We want 10 billion lives that you stole from us." He shook his head. "But you cannot give us those things. So instead, you will give us something else." "What?" "Everything." The human fleet began to move. Ships descended toward the planet's surface. Others took positions around the council representatives' vessels, locking weapons on them. There was nowhere to run and no way to fight. Across the galaxy, the same scene was playing out. Human fleets appeared around every major council world. Military bases found themselves surrounded. Defense platforms went offline. The entire galactic civilization was paralyzed in a single moment. High Scientist Moon stood beside on the command ship. She watched the chaos on the screens with satisfaction. "They never knew we were watching them," she said. "For thousands of years, our scouts moved through their systems. We learned their languages. We studied their technology. We found their weaknesses, and they never suspected a thing." Nodded. They thought they were safe. They thought their power was eternal. They forgot the most important lesson of history. "What lesson is that?" "That the people you hurt will remember, even when you forget." Chancellor joined them on the bridge. He looked older than his colleagues, his face lined with age and wisdom. While planned military operations and developed weapons, thought about what would come after. "The Council is asking for negotiations," he said. "They want to discuss terms." "There are no terms," replied. "There is only judgment." Was quiet for a moment. "We have won. The galaxy is ours. Perhaps now we should think about." "About what?" Mercy turned to face the Chancellor. "I respect you. You have led our people well, but do not speak to me of mercy. My family has carried the memory of Earth for 12,000 years. Every generation has sworn the same oath. We will remember. We will repay." He looked back at the screens, where council representatives were begging for their lives. They did not show mercy to the children of Earth. They did not negotiate when our cities were burning. They watched 10 billion people die and called it necessary. Now it is their turn to understand what necessity feels like. The human soldiers began landing on the. They moved through the crystal cities like ghosts, silent and unstoppable. Council security forces tried to fight, but their weapons had been disabled. They were helpless. The humans gathered the council representatives in the Grand Assembly Hall. High Lord was forced to his knees beside the other leaders. He looked up at the human soldiers with terror in his glowing eyes. A young human officer stepped forward. Her name was Captain Han, and she had been chosen for this moment because of her excellence in combat. But as she looked at the kneeling aliens, she felt something unexpected. Doubt. She had grown up hearing the stories of Earth. She had sworn the vow like every other human. She had trained her whole life for this day. But now that it was here, she found herself asking questions she had never asked before. Were they really going to do this? Were they going to become the same thing they hated? She pushed the thoughts aside. This was not the time for doubt. She had a job to do. "Citizens of the Galactic Council," she announced. "You are now prisoners of the human ascendancy. You will be transported to holding facilities where you will await judgment. Any resistance will be met with immediate execution." High Lord finally spoke. His voice was broken and weak. "Please, we were not alive when Earth was destroyed. We only inherited what our ancestors did. We are innocent." Looked at him for a long moment. Then she thought about the 10 billion people who had died. The children who never got to grow up. The families who never got to say goodbye. Innocent, she repeated. You celebrated the era of stability. You toasted to our extinction. You built your peace on the graves of our people, and you call yourselves innocent. She turned to her soldiers. Take them. The prisoners were led away. The Grand Assembly Hall fell silent, and across the galaxy, humanity tightened its grip on a civilization that had never expected to pay for its crimes. 50,000 years of waiting had ended. The day of reckoning had begun. The war was not a war. It was an execution carried out across a galaxy. Admiral Shin sat in his command center, watching reports come in from every corner of Council space. Human fleets had surrounded every major world. Enemy military forces had been disabled. The greatest civilization in the galaxy had fallen in less than a day. But the real work was just beginning. There were the ones who gave the final order, said to his commanders. They chose to burn Earth. They designed the extinction protocol. They will be judged first. The human fleet above powered up its weapons. A message was sent to the surface below. People of 50,000 years ago, your leaders ordered the destruction of Earth. 10 billion humans died because of their decision. Today, we offer you a choice. They listened in terror. Surrender completely. Serve humanity for the next 10,000 years as payment for your crimes. Accept whatever punishment we decide, or refuse and face the same fate you gave to Earth. High Lord, still a prisoner, was brought before to deliver his people's answer. We refuse, said. His voice shook, but there was pride in his glowing eyes. The Empire will not become slaves. We would rather die than serve humans. Nodded slowly. Very well, you have made your choice. He turned to Moon. Activate the stellar engine. The stellar engine was a massive machine that had been hidden in the sun for centuries. Human agents had placed it there long ago, waiting for this moment. Now, it came to life. The sun began to grow brighter, then brighter still. The light became painful to look at. The temperature on every planet in the system started to rise. They realized what was happening. They screamed and begged for mercy. They tried to escape in their ships, but human vessels blocked every path. There was nowhere to go. This is what Earth felt like, said quietly. This is what you did to us. The sun exploded. A wave of fire swept through the system, consuming everything in its path. Planets cracked and burned. Space stations melted into nothing. 200 billion died in a matter of hours, the same number as Earth's population in 2147. Watched it happen with no expression on his face. Justice, he said, at last. The destruction of sent a message to the entire galaxy. The humans were not here to negotiate. They were here to punish. Some species surrendered immediately. They fell to their knees and begged for mercy. They promised to serve humanity forever if only they were allowed to live. These species were spared, though they were stripped of their power and made to work for their new masters. Other species tried to fight. A warrior race with 4 arms and thick armor gathered their remaining fleets and attacked a human convoy. It was a brave effort, but it was hopeless. Human weapons tore through their ships like they were made of paper. The battle lasted less than an hour. They fought well, one of his officers said. Should we show them respect? Shook his head. They supported the extinction protocol. Respect is earned, not given. They was bombarded from orbit. Their cities were reduced to rubble. Their population was scattered to prison colonies across the galaxy. The collective received a special punishment. They were the species that had designed the weapons used to destroy Earth. They had created the technology that made genocide possible. Moon had spent centuries developing a weapon specifically for them. The neural plague. They shared one mind. Every individual was connected to every other individual through a vast mental network. They thought together, felt together, and made decisions together. This was their greatest strength, turned it into their greatest weakness. The neural plague was a biological weapon that attacked the mental connection. It did not kill them, at least not directly. Instead, it drove them insane. Each was suddenly alone in their own mind for the first time in their existence. They could not handle the silence. They could not handle the loneliness. Within weeks, civilization collapsed. Billions went mad. They attacked each other, destroyed their own cities, tore themselves apart. The species that had helped murder Earth destroyed itself. Watched the reports with satisfaction. They created the weapons that burned our world. Now they burn themselves. But not everyone in the human leadership was comfortable with what was happening. Captain Han had proven herself in combat. She was one of the finest officers in the human military. But as the weeks passed, she found herself growing troubled. She watched the destruction of. She saw the madness of the. She witnessed species being enslaved and worlds being burned, and she began to wonder if humanity had become something terrible. One night, she requested a meeting with Admiral. He agreed to see her in his private quarters. "Captain Han," he said, "you have served well. What is on your mind?" Hesitated. What she was about to say could end her career, but she could not stay silent any longer. "Admiral, I believe we are going too far. We came here for justice, but what we are doing, it looks more like revenge. We are destroying entire species. We are making billions suffer for the crimes of their ancestors. How are we any different from the Council?" Was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood and walked to a screen on the wall. "Come here," he said. Walked to his side, pressed a button, and the screen showed footage that every human knew by heart. Earth burning, cities disappearing in fire, oceans boiling, children screaming. "This," said, "is what they did to us. 10 billion people, our entire world, gone in 3 hours. And do you know what the Council did afterward? They celebrated. They held parties. They congratulated themselves on their wisdom. They erased us from history and forgot we ever existed." He turned to face. "I have asked myself your question many times. How are we different from them? And the answer is simple. We did not start this. We did not come to their worlds and burn their children. We did not attack people who had done nothing wrong. They struck first. They tried to murder us. We are simply finishing what they started." Shook her head. "But the people dying now are not the same people who made that decision. It was 50,000 years ago. These are different individuals." "Are they?" Pointed at the screen, where a recording of the Grand Assembly played. Council representatives were toasting to the era of stability, celebrating humanity's extinction. They inherited the benefits of our destruction. They built their civilization on our bones. Every generation since Earth was burned has profited from our deaths. They are not innocent, Captain. They are merely lucky that it took us this long to return." Was silent. She could not argue with his logic, but something still felt wrong in her heart. His expression softened slightly. "I understand your doubts. You are young. You have not spent your entire life thinking about this moment, but I have. My family has carried this burden for 12,000 years. Every ancestor I have ever known lived and died with one purpose: to see this day come." He put his hand on her shoulder. "We cannot undo what was done to Earth. We cannot bring back the dead, but we can make sure it never happens again. We can show the galaxy what happens when you try to destroy humanity, and we can build a future where our children are never afraid." Met his eyes. "And what kind of future will that be? A future built on blood and revenge?" Did not answer. He turned back to the screen, where Earth continued to burn in an endless loop. "Go back to your duties, Captain. The war will be over soon, and then we will have time to think about the future." Left his quarters with more questions than answers. The war continued for 5 years. 11 Council species were rendered extinct. 23 surrendered and accepted human rule. 13 tried to fight and were reduced to broken remnants on prison worlds. The galaxy had been conquered. Chancellor established the Court of Remembrance on the ruins of the capital. Here, every species would be tried for their role in Earth's destruction. Here, judgment would be delivered. The trials lasted months. Evidence was presented, communications from 50,000 years ago, secret recordings of council meetings, documents proving who had known about the extinction protocol and who had approved it. The truth was laid bare for all to see. Most species were found guilty, some pleaded for mercy, some everything, some simply accepted their fate. The sentences were harsh. Guilty species lost their independence forever. Their military forces were disbanded. Their governments were dissolved. They became subjects of the human ascendancy, required to serve their new masters for generations to come. Humanity had won. But as Han watched the final trials end, she could not help feeling that something had been lost as well. The children of Earth had returned. They had taken their revenge. And now they would have to live with what they had become.